pretty recently I was with my boyfriend, and while I was visiting him, I decided I wanted to cook for him. You know, fastest way to guy's hardest to his stomach. That's what they say, so figured I'd cook. One thing I made was steak and mashed potatoes. Bought a whole bag of potatoes because he didn't have any. He kind of lives on instant mash, if you can believe it. Kind of sketchy. But anyways, I bought him a bag of potatoes, made a couple of things with them, and then left. He lives 5 hours away, so what I ended up doing was leaving some potatoes behind because we didn't use them all. And now he has no way to use the potatoes because he doesn't know how to cook. So this is the part where I teach my boyfriend how to cook. I left him with russet potatoes, so one recipe we're going to be doing today is making oven baked fries, which he loves, using russet potatoes, and they look like this. They're a pretty standard potato. I mean, they're one of the most common. They're really good for baking. I also left him with a little bit of bacon, and everyone loves bacon, that's for sure. One thing I'm going to do with the bacon is wrap it around these potatoes. Now, these are red potatoes. If you don't have red potatoes, if you just have, if you have Yukon Gold, if you have russet, whatever you have, they'll work just fine. Red potatoes are one of my favorites. They have a really good, rich flavor, so I'm going to use these for that recipe too. Um, One thing you're going to need when we make the oven baked fries is you're going to obviously need an oven. You're going to need some spray oil. You're going to be really generous with that. And you're going to need some sort of seasoning. I'm going to use this McCormick salt-free steak seasoning. Um, it's one of my favorites. It's a really good flavor, and if you like salt, you can add salt. Don't worry about the salt. We'll make sure you get your flavors in there, but that's what I'm going to use. I recommend using some sort of seasoning that you can see. Just I like being able to see the fact that my food tastes good, if that makes sense. So that's what we're gonna work on. I'm gonna start cutting the potatoes up, and we'll get started. Okay, so what I've done is I've rinsed the potatoes. They're clean. You want to make sure you rinse them because they obviously they're going to have soil. Not that soil will hurt you if you don't rinse them. It's so not the end of the world, but I would just recommend doing so just to make sure you get any soil, any wax, anything the store might put on them. And then what we're gonna do is cut them. Now this isn't the best knife that I'm using, but that's okay. I am pretty picky about knives, so I might switch out here. Just we'll see. We're gonna cut the potatoes. Obviously, I'm not doing so hard right now. It doesn't matter if they're not quite in half. What we're gonna do is just kind of slice them like this. This knife is really blunt. So you just want to slice them, and the size isn't so important. This one's a little thick here. I would recommend cutting it just in half this way. The size isn't so important. I mean, the thicker they are, the longer they're going to take to cook. Now, we're going to put them in an oven at 400 degrees. They're going to take between 30 to 45 minutes. So really not terribly long as far as cooking goes, but definitely the thicker you cook your fry, the longer they're going to take. So we're just going to keep cutting here. Now, I'm only cutting up 4 potatoes, but that's just because I'm the only one home, and I don't really feel like eating a ton of fries right now. The more people you cook for, the hungrier you are. Obviously, you're going to do more potatoes. One thing I'd recommend is gauging how hungry you are, starting to slice up, and you can always slice more potatoes as you go. One thing about these fries, though, is that if you do decide to save them as leftovers, you're going to want to heat them up in the oven, the next day or whenever you eat them. Really avoid the microwave because they're going to get soggy and they're not going to taste so good. So we're just going to cut up a couple more potatoes and then we'll go to that next step. And if your cuts are kind of clumsy, if your potatoes are really differently shaped, you might have a couple really thin pieces and a couple really thick pieces, and that's okay. Don't worry too much about that. We're really just getting a feel for this. Obviously, we don't all cook. That's why we're teaching you. And use as sharp a knife as possible. I'm really not the best example as far as knives go because I need to run the dishwasher. But, that's okay. And I would really recommend using the russet potatoes for this recipe. One of the reasons is because the skin is so thick. and it just really helps the outside get super crispy. I tried this recipe once doing the Yukon Gold potato, and the skin just doesn't get as crispy at all, and it ends up being kind of a limpy fry. And if that's your thing, totally fine. Like if you want a limpy fry, go for it. But personally, inside to be nice and gooey, kind of mushed up potatoy flavor. So I have cut up my fries. And the next step here, you're going to take a baking pan. I'm using one that's like this. And you're going to take your spray oil. Really, just you want to use a really generous amount to make sure your potatoes aren't sticking. Now, to be completely honest, they're going to stick. Like, it's not a big deal. Some of them will stick more than others. You'll just scrape them off, turn them over. Life will be good. You'll eat your fries. So definitely grease up the pan. If they do stick, it's not the end of the world. I would definitely recommend using spray oil as opposed to, regular, vegetable or canola oil. Just if you with spray oil, there's not so much danger of using too much. If you use vegetable oil, canola oil, olive oil, whatever kind of oil, there really is a danger of using too much, and then you end up with these really greasy fries, and I'm looking for more of an oven-baked crunch here. And then what I'm going to do is just sprinkle. You can be as liberal as you want with your seasoning. So I know I said we get your salt in there. I'm going to hold off on the salt until a little bit later. We're going to spray these again. This just really helps get them get nice and crispy. And then what I'm doing right now is preheating that oven to bake at 400 degrees. Once it's baked, once the oven's preheated, we're going to put these in and bake them. I thought it was time to check on our fries and see how they're doing. Not sure if you can hear them, but they're actually whistling right now, which is a good sign. Now what I'm going to do is flip them over. You're going to kind of see some of them are really looking toasty on one side. If they're not looking so brown, feel free to keep them in a little longer, but it's really not necessary. They're gonna be cooked through whether they're brown and toasty on one side or not. It just doesn't matter of personal preference too. And if you really like them to be kind of crunchy, you can always make sure to cook them a little longer on this side to make sure you get that maximum crunch effect. What I'm doing is just flipping these around. You don't have to flip them. It really is better, in my opinion, to do so. Like I said, it's all about that crunch ratio. And, surprisingly, these are not sticking, so I feel rather impressed with myself. If you don't want to flip them, I would at least recommend giving the pan a shake, just to kind of move things around and make sure they're not super stuck, because there's nothing worse than letting something stuck get more so, because by the time you're ready to scrape them off the pan and eat them, they're not going to want to come off. If you don't have really good cooking pans, usually when you notice that a lot of your food is sticking, I'd really recommend putting some sort of foil down and then using the spray oil just to kind of ensure yourself, because there's nothing worse than planning out your meal and getting super excited about what you're going to eat and then not being able to eat it because it's stuck to the pan. That's the worst. So I'm going to put these back in the oven here. They're probably going to need another 15 or 20 minutes. We'll check on them in a little bit. Alright guys, our fries are done. See how toasty and just delicious they look? I'm going to give them a shake, make sure none of them are super stuck. Now these not only are healthy because we baked them in the oven, also delicious, and like I said before, if you're a ketchup fan, yeah. These will taste good with ketchup, taste good with just about anything. You can eat them however you want to. You can obviously use them as a side dish, but at the same time, if you're happy to just eat a plate of fries, then so be it. So I'm going to take a bite. They're super good. I really encourage all of you to just try these. They're delicious. And then now would be the time to add that salt if that's what you want. Let's melt a little bit. Oh, pour that here. So there you go. Oven baked fries, super easy and a great way to use your leftover potatoes. The next thing we're going to work on is the bacon potato bites. Now, obviously, we need potatoes for this, and like I said, I'm personally using these red potatoes. You can use whatever size, shape, color, whatever potatoes you want. Um, only thing is, we're going to be cutting them really small, so just keep that in mind. Another thing you'll obviously need is bacon. So I have my bacon here. I have cut it into thirds, so each rasher of bacon cut into 3 pieces. If you were really, really ambitious and wanted to try rolling them up with half a rasher of bacon, you're so welcome to try that. Keep in mind that it will take longer to cook the more meat you put on a potato. We're also going to use olive oil. The brand doesn't matter, I just have your Costco brand oil. No endorsement here, guys. You're also going to want rosemary. In an ordinary situation, I would use fresh rosemary. Cut it up, dice it, however you like it. Some people like their rosemary really, really big. Some people like it super small. Today, I'm going to be using these dried rosemary leaves. One reason for that is my boyfriend doesn't know how to cook. In fact, and this is a true story here, guys, he doesn't know that herbs are plants. Well, I think he knows that now, but let me tell you a story. We recently went out for pizza, and he ordered this pizza. It's like a cheese pizza with basil, I want to say. And when it came out, it had, these big basil leaves on it, just decorated all over the place, and he starts picking them off like, this is gross. He was like, that's basil? Oh! And he started putting the basil back on his pizza. He doesn't like vegetables. I'm not sure whether he thought it was spinach or lettuce or whatever he thought it was, but I kind of laughed at him a little bit. Haven't you ever seen fresh herbs before? No. He thinks they come ground up. So, with that, we're going to use our dried rosemary today. We're going to start with cutting our potatoes, so let me get all set up and I'll show you what we're doing. So I already cut up the majority of our potatoes, just into little 1-inch cubes. And again, I'm really not doing a whole lot of potatoes here, just it is myself here. Obviously, like I said, the hungrier you are, and the more people you're trying to serve here, obviously, the more potatoes you're going to do. So just cut your potatoes up, the size is what matters. The shape doesn't matter so much. Like this, for example, is kind of big. I'm going to cut it into a little triangle. Like I said, the shape doesn't matter. It's going to get wrapped with bacon. You're not really going to see the shape, but it's really the size that matters because you want that good bacon to potato ratio. And what I have going on next to me is a pot of water. We're going to boil these potatoes. We're going to boil them for about 3 minutes so they get a little cooked, and then we're going to roll them in bacon. So what I've done, like I said, I got the pot of water. I have added a little salt. It just speeds up the process here for us. So once we're done cutting up the potatoes, we'll get them boiling. We'll add the bacon. We'll have some deliciousness. Now, I'm going to put these in the water. And then, like I said, we're going to put bacon on these, and then we're going to bake them. They're going to take about 15 minutes on each side, so a half an hour total at about 400, 425 degrees. So make sure you have your oven preheated and a baking tray covered in foil. We'll talk more about that later. Our oven is preheated and our potatoes are parboiled. That means that they are partially cooked. These ones are a little more raw than you would normally consider a parboiled potato. That's just because we're actually going to be baking them in an oven at 400 degrees for about half an hour. So I really didn't want to have them be mushy. So what I've done here, drained them. They're cooling, like I said, they're kind of warm right now, but nothing, you're not in danger of burning your hands or anything. And next we're going to make our bites, so we're going to wrap them all up. What I've done is put a little bit of oil, not too much. We don't want greasy potatoes, we just want flavor. So I have put about a tablespoon of olive oil, and I put salt and pepper and rosemary. My boyfriend doesn't own ground black pepper, so really, if you don't want to put pepper in here, you don't have to. I mean, to be honest, would recommend buying black pepper because it's one of the staples in a kitchen. I'm mind blown he doesn't have any, but then again, he doesn't know how to cook. So we got salt, pepper, rosemary, and oil. And we have our bacon here. We also have toothpicks. These are what we're going to use to secure the bacon and potatoes together. So I'm going to get started here. Once I touch the oil, I'm going to be pretty greasy. And then once I touch the bacon, I'm going to be unable to touch anything else until I wash my hands. So keep that in mind, guys. We're touching raw meat here. We want to be super careful not to get ourselves or anyone else sick. So what I'm going to do is put our potatoes into the oil mixture and use my hands to mix them up. This is where the fun part is. I mean, I love getting my hands in the food. I love just getting dirty in the kitchen. Like, it's so much fun. So now that I smell like an Italian restaurant, here's what we're doing. Greasing it up, getting the flavors. Okay. And like I said, I'm pretty greasy. It's kind of fun. And then we're going to take oh my goodness, I'm covered in rosemary. One potato, and we're going to take one piece of bacon, and we're just going to wrap it. And like I said, if you're the person who wants to try doing it with half a rasher of bacon, you're so more than welcome to do that. Again, like I said, it's going to take longer to cook the more meat's on here. So I stuck the skewer through and I'm putting it down on a foil-covered baking sheet. And we're going to keep going. I'm probably going to run out of bacon here. I should have bought more, but we had plenty this morning, and then somebody decided they were hungry and wanted bacon for breakfast, which is totally not a crime. Any potatoes I have left over, I'm just going to bake in the oven, same temperature for the same time. They're going to be delicious. They're just not going to have that bacon flavor, which is fine. So again, secure with a toothpick, and I'm going to do all of these, and then we'll bake them. And I would just really recommend, if you're going to do this, using a whole package of bacon. I mean, I'm not sure how many of these you're really going to want to eat at once, but I'm not a bachelor with a love of bacon. I mean, I love bacon. I don't want to marry it. Right. You know, before my boyfriend and I were even official, I ordered him bacon on Amazon and had it sent to his apartment. I think I should win an award for that. Just, you know, like best girlfriend ever award. I don't know. Seriously, what girlfriend orders her boyfriend bacon and has it delivered to his doorstep? I just think that's true dedication. Okay, so we're getting closer to being done here and being able to pop these in the oven. And of course, the sooner they're in the oven, the sooner we get to eat them. Oops. Some of this bacon is not wanting to skewer through, so feel free, if you're worried about it, just sticking two in there. It's really just going to help it stay. And the better it stays in the potato, the better that bacon flavor you're going to get. If you're into sauces, I would recommend dipping these into like a sour cream. I think that would be pretty tasty. My boyfriend doesn't like sour cream, so I'm not going to teach you how to make a sour cream dip, because this is teaching my boyfriend how to cook, and he's not going to want to cook something like that. But sour cream would be good. You can always mix it up with some chives or something like that. If you're one of those people who eat ketchup with anything, then I guess this would be good for you. Ketchup and bacon. I don't know. I'm not a huge ketchup fan. I'm trying to find like the best pieces of potato to use here. The smaller the better, because then you get more of that bacon wrapped around it. This piece of bacon is not very big. So I mean, I know I was warning you guys against necessarily doing a half a rasher because of the longer it takes to cook, but you know what? I changed my mind. Next time we're going to do this, we're going to try doing half a rasher because you're going to get more of that bacon in there. Although this one seems okay. It also depends on your bacon, because some bacon is super stringy and not so tasty. And if you're one of those people who are like watching your diet and you want to do turkey bacon, I won't judge you. Turkey bacon would be tasty too. Not quite the same, not as fatty, but if that's what you're into, I won't judge you. One more to do, and then we'll just bake these potatoes with the rest of them. This one's probably going to need 2 skewers. Nope, it's kind of floppy. Alright guys, so now that we're done here, I'm going to stick these in the oven and we'll check on them in about 15 minutes. We're going to roll them over. Make sure to wash your hands super thoroughly, okay guys? Okay everybody, our bacon potato bites are done. And let me put them in front of you here to take a look. So here, they're looking crispy, they're bubbling. If you're really unsure as to whether the potato inside is done, you can always just insert a knife. You'll be able to tell by how easily the knife goes in. And they are done. At this point, it's just a matter of crisping them up to your own taste. I think these are just about perfect. Some of them could use a little bit longer, so I might pop the tray back in a little bit. But again, that's just kind of a personal preference. And then these potatoes here are also done. They're getting kind of golden on one side. And, these are a great side dish. The bacon potato bites could definitely be an appetizer. Or, if it's like the Super Bowl and you want to please your friends, just whip up something like this. And now that we're done here, the next step is to wash the dishes. And, if you ask your girlfriend nicely, she might just do it for you, even if you happen to have a dishwasher. There you go. We made oven potato fries and we made bacon and potato bites. There's something you can easily wow people with. Just make them for your parents, your girlfriend, your friends, whoever you want. And if you want to keep your new cooking skills to yourself, I don't blame you. But definitely, work on these recipes, master them, and feel free to make any tweaks you'd like to do. I know I mentioned turkey bacon, and there's definitely some other herbs you could use other than rosemary. Tune in again. We'll teach you how to make something new. I don't know what yet, but it'll be a nice surprise. So practice cooking.